for the man who taught Vince Carter how to slam.
You can't make this stuff up.
The man whose three inspired the Curry family.
Pulls it up for three.
I don't exaggerate, I congratulate.
With another masterpiece.
It's time for You Know Who, my man Sekou.
Goes airborne.
It's Sekou Smith's Hang Time Podcast. Take it away.
Welcome into another edition of the Hang Time Podcast. Sekou Smith from NBA.com. Your host here in Atlanta. Got a great show for you today. Spoke a couple weeks ago with Memphis coach and basketball legend Penny Hardaway. Now, keep in mind, this is long before the NCAA violation situation arose with his prize freshman, James Wiseman. We did not discuss that with Penny. We did not even bring up James Wiseman or any other specific names on that roster. We wanted to make sure we had a conversation with Penny that would keep everybody out of the principal's office. And in retrospect, we did a good job because that's not something that came up. We also have Branden Jacoby Peters on the podcast this week, talking to us about the Golden State Warriors and the dramatic change in lifestyle and location the Warriors have undergone the past few months, no longer playing in Oakland, now playing at the Chase Center in San Francisco. And everything's changed for Warriors fans who are now dealing with some dueling loyalties on which side of the bay you might be from. But again, we got a great lineup this week, as always, here on the Hang Time Podcast. We're going to kick things off talking to Penny Hardaway, and then again, Branden J. Peters talking Warriors and NBA. Very appreciative for the time this guy has taken to speak with us here on the Hang Time Podcast. NBA legend and a basketball genius, if there ever was one, as a player and now as a coach. Penny Hardaway, the coach at Memphis, is joining us. Coach, how you doing?
Everything's going great, man, and it's no problem, and I'll pay you for the compliments later.
Well, look, I know there's so much going on in the game of basketball right now, from the grassroots level on up. And being a college coach, I'm just curious what has changed dramatically in your eyes in the time since you were a player to now being on the coaching end. Has the game changed dramatically in terms of what you view?
Yeah, it's definitely changed dramatically from when I played the game in college and in the NBA until now. Back in the day, the forwards and the centers were everything. You know, they were like the focal points. They were like the superstars of the league in the post. And then everything was so crowded in the post because you had to really feed the five man. It was like a written rule or even an unwritten rule. Like you had to get that ball to the five man almost every time down to get that touch in the half court sets. And then now the game has changed so much because there isn't any more bigs that want to post anymore. All the bigs are on the 3-point line, and it's almost like five hybrids or five guards on the floor versus big men and guards.
Mm-hmm. So what does that do in terms of when you get kids with all the skill training that they do nowadays and all of these different technological advances they've had in the past couple of decades? What does that do for people who have to teach the game, who are the guardians of how this game is supposed to be played, and you're trying to groom these kids to play at the collegiate level and potentially beyond for some of them?
Well, not to, throw any high school coaches or AAU coaches under the bus, but there isn't a lot of teaching skill set of the kids. Obviously, you got to put your system in. You got to do certain things. But these kids, when they get the higher level they go, and the more they don't know, they're eventually going to have to know it. And unfortunately for us, as coaches, you have to detox a lot of the things that they've learned in a bad fashion and then kind of groom them in the areas where they have to be better, especially on this level. And the biggest thing is energy. The one thing you find yourself coaching is energy from these kids coming, out of high school nowadays because they've been allowed to play at a slower pace than what they need to. And when they get to the higher level, they try to play with that same pace and it doesn't work. So they go through a little learning curve, not only with the plays, but the energy that it takes to be out there every day.
Yeah. Now, when you have people who come through the basketball ecosystem and have great playing careers, not all of them move on to the coaching ranks. When did you know that coaching was going to be in your future post-playing career and that you wanted to maybe do that for years beyond your playing days?
Well, actually, I didn't know. A friend of mine who had got diagnosed with colon cancer came to me and asked me if I could help him coach because he was going through chemo. And this was a middle school in our old neighborhood. It was a middle school that he and I went to when it was elementary. And I wanted to give back to my community and then also help out a friend. And at that point is the first time and the only time that I ever thought about coaching anything after I retired from the NBA. And it just went from there. It took on a life of its own.
The world of big-time college basketball is now on a level that it's never been in terms of the reach of it and just the attention paid to it. How do you protect college kids? How do you protect those players from all the things that are out there and keep them locked in and focused on their task when there's social media and all these other things swirling on, going around outside of the sanctuary of that gym and that program?
Yeah, that's the toughest thing because there's so many avenues and ways for kids to be contacted through all kinds of social media outlets. You don't even have to be in person. You don't even have to be in the same town, state, area. You can still, get negativity or get people trying to get you to do different things. And it's difficult. All you can do is, as a coach, is give them the rules and regulations and the things to look out for. And you just hope that they, take heed, and then their upbringing from their childhood on doing things the right way, that you can just, and obviously being an 18-year-old, 19-year-old with getting all of this attention when you get to school, it doesn't help that, but you just have to keep plugging away with just trying to do the right thing.
Yeah. You mentioned your community, and anybody who knows anything about you knows that the connection you have with Memphis and the fans and the people who love basketball, not just, the NBA fans or what have you, it's the basketball community, which in Memphis I think is very underrated. I think it's always been one of those cities where the love for basketball was not necessarily known beyond Memphis, but like myself, if you've been through there and have spent any time there, it's a basketball crazy city. Is the connection in where you came up to be the coach there now and to have an opportunity to change some lives and impact those young people?
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, being born and raised here was a huge factor within itself, but the love that the city has shown me since I was in ninth grade, an unknown ninth grader playing with Elliot Perry, who got drafted in the NBA, playing in his shadow. A lot of people came out to see him, and then they basically, discovered me. And from that point on, just the love that they gave me and the support that they've given me all the way up until this point. I felt the need that once I made it, to come back and not only give money to my community, but to give my time to my community. And that's been a win-win for everybody because it's just come full circle.
I know the demands on your time are great as a college coach, and I know you're locked in and focused on the college game. But what catches your eye in 2019? What keeps Penny Hardaway intrigued about the NBA game? Players, styles. I mean, what is it about the NBA that still makes you sit back and take a look?
Yeah, obviously it's players first, and then it's the style that they play. Not obviously what their team plays, but their creativity and what they bring to the game. And obviously, I like an unselfish guy that can find other people on the floor, be a floor general, and still find ways to get his own in different ways. That takes a lot of work, not just coming in and being a volume shooter and just getting a bunch of shots up and scoring 30, 40, 50 points or whatever, but actually taking the time to kind of dissect the game and play chess instead of checkers as a basketball player and making multiple efforts on both ends. I enjoy watching players that bring that to the game.
It's interesting. I was talking to a former teammate of yours who's a colleague of mine now, Dennis Scott, and we always talk about the history of the game, kind of where it's been, where it's going. And he always comments about the fact that you were the player that was that next link in the evolution from Magic having a big point guard to Penny. And he was talking about how many players are in the league now that he talks to that mention going back and watching your highlights and watching how you played as kind of a blueprint for how they like to play. Did you know during your career that you had that game-changing talent, or did you wait and kind of not look at it then, but maybe look at it after you were done playing it to see where you fit in the landscape of basketball history?
The one thing I tried to worry about when I played was representing every single night that I stepped on the court, never taking a night off. Every time I stepped on that floor, I wanted to dominate. I wanted to put a show on for the fans who paid their money to come to the arenas. I wanted them to leave saying that this guy puts on a show and gives it his all every time he's out on the floor. And what came with that was an appreciation from the fans for my game and for my talent. But I never looked at it like, hey, I'm changing the game right now. I never looked at it in that fashion. I just came out and played hard as I could every single night. And I was definitely conscious of not just going out and going through the motions, because as a fan, you don't want to go to the game to see your favorite player or favorite team and see them go through the motions all night, or either take a night off. And I learned that from a very early age.
The work ethic that you showed both as, in your playing career in college and in the NBA, is that one of the things you're driving home to your players now, just making them understand what kind of grind and drive it takes to be at that highest level? I know, a lot of guys show up on a college campus with talent, but as well as I do, it's so much more involved in it than just having raw talent. Is that one of the strongest messages you have to send to your guys?
Yeah, we're always talking about, accountability in a lot of ways, but we also talk about entitlement. All these guys feel entitled. You're only responsible for what you can do. And what we tell you is you can bring your energy every single day. You can bring your body and your energy. What you don't know mentally, physically, you can make up for it. And attitude of thinking everybody's supposed to give you something and that you're not supposed to work for it is definitely something that most coaches have to fight. We have to coach energy to get these kids to play hard. And at our school, we're not going to have that, because we have to break that cycle. We have to break what you've done before and get you on the same level that we are. And for us to win, and to win big and to win a national championship, we need all of the energy to be the same. The culture to be, we're going to work hard, we're going to earn everything that we get, and we're not entitled to anything. We got to earn it. So that's what we have going for our guys when they come through the door.
I know. Last thing here, Coach, and like I said, I appreciate you taking your time. I know, the college season comes upon us so quickly, and it's all building towards March Madness and chasing that championship. But how fun is it for you just to be in that foxhole every year? Like, you get to start over fresh with a new team, with a new group, with new energy, kind of, trying to figure it out as you go. I mean, how much fun is it, and has it been digging in the coaching side and doing what you're doing in Memphis?
Yeah, obviously being an extension of the coach on the floor for all those years, you feel like you're a coach. But actually being a coach and being involved and having an actual 15 guys under your tutelage, under your, leadership, and to have to bring that in every day and to try to find different ways every single day, every single night of studying film, studying tendencies, to try to make us better on a nightly basis. That makes me happy every day, because that continued they kept my competitive juices going like it did when I played. And that's what I look forward to every year. I mean, obviously the year that you're in, you want to win it all. But if you don't, you get a chance to do it all over again and repeat. So the thing about it is I enjoy that. That's what I live for. That's what I eat for. That's what I sleep for. That's what I breathe for, is basketball and learning how to get better every day at every single part of the game. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Sounds awesome, Coach. And I know you got your own podcast, the 2 Cents podcast, being a His Studios original. So we're going to check that out as well. And we are definitely going to pay attention to Memphis Tigers basketball. We love checking out that team and seeing how they play and seeing whatever reflection of you is in that program, man. So we appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you
for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Once again, we want to thank Penny Hardaway for spending some time with us here on the Hang Time Podcast. And you're talking about the future of the league, and now we're talking about the present of the league with Branden J. Peters. The Golden State Warriors, after 5 years of living the high life, they are now back to a very sober reality in a new building, in a new city, technically, across the bay in San Francisco, but not exactly the Warriors we've been used to here in recent years.
We've talked a little bit about those Golden State Warriors, the difference in last year and, of course, this year. What's the future of the franchise? If Steph Curry isn't even being reevaluated for the next 3 months, what's the right move?
I think it's going to be a one-off season where you have to get those guys healthy, develop some of the young prospects, and then, hopefully be able to get a huge draft pick in this upcoming draft. But the most important thing is to get Clay, Steph healthy. You got to play the game, the long game, and play it smart.
The future is you're looking at opening night next year, starting 4 All-Stars. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, D'Angelo Russell, if they decide to hold on to him, and having a high lottery pick to add to that, and hopefully develop some of these guys, Pascal, Jordan Poole, Kai Bowman, whoever it may be, developing a couple of those guys, Willie Cauley-Stein. They've got some good options. The future for them is fine. The present is going to be very difficult.
Veteran journalist Branden J. Peters joining us here on the Hang Time Podcast. Man, I appreciate you taking the time to rock with us today. And it's interesting. The state of affairs for the Golden State Warriors is dramatically different from the last time I actually spoke to you in your studio. That was the high life the last time I saw you, and we even uttered words about the Warriors. Now it's back to this very strange reality after 5 years of being on top of the mountain. What's that like for Warriors fans, for folks in the Bay Area and people who have lived through these past 5 years?
It's wild, man. A lot of people, who follow me for writing or just know that I'm from Oakland and I'm a Warriors fan, come up to me and be like, "Hey, man, hold it down now that things are good." I'm like, man, I'm 43 years old, bro. We were struggling for most of my life before we got to the good part. Like, we believe was a highlight for me. So, yeah, it's a lot of people are upset and like, wow, I can't believe this. But at the same time, you got to think that it's a ton of injuries. I think this is kind of unprecedented, this number of injuries to so many star players on one team in such a small amount of time. And people feel like the team will be back for sure. Like, once the core gets back on the floor healthy, then things will turn.
Yeah, we talk so much about the connection the Warriors have had over the years to their fans in Oakland. For them to move across the Bay, to the Chase Center and to be in San Francisco now, everybody had time to prepare themselves for it, but that didn't make it any easier to swallow, I'd imagine, when you see them on opening night in that new building, in that new spot, knowing the history with Oakland. I mean, that still had to be hard to watch, wasn't it?
It's difficult. Like, I understand, they started in Philadelphia, but, we're in San Francisco for a good amount of time before they came over to Oakland. So it's not like they're going somewhere they've never been, but at the same time, I don't feel like the league and the organization ever fully embraced Oakland. Like, they embraced it. The players definitely did. Some of the execs did for sure, but like we never thought about changing the name for the Oakland Warriors. You know what I mean? So that's right. One of those things. I feel like later as more success came, they definitely bought in. You had the town uniform. Shout out to the homie Dustin from the Bay who designed those. But I want to see them wear the town uniforms now that they're in San Francisco. They definitely wore the city uniforms when they were in Oakland. So what's good for the goose is good for the game.
Turnabout is fair play. No question. Well, look, we know that, the number of guys, Steph with the broken hand, Clay with the ACL, Draymond dealt with a little bit of injury stuff to start the season. You lose Kevin Durant in free agency. Andre Iguodala is gone. Sean Livingston retires. I mean, the list goes on and on about the changes.
Looney
as much.
Exactly. D'Angelo just sprained his thumb. It's like, wow, it's crazy.
I mean, is this like the flip side of that karma coin? Like, okay, you had it rolling. Now we're gonna humble you a little bit just to remind you of how quickly and how fleeting that elite success can be.
I don't know, man. I think it's just kind of like a string of bad luck to an extent, and just injuries happen in professional sports. Like, we've just never seen it happen this much. And also, I feel like maybe we have, and the team was just a middle of the way team, and we just didn't notice. You know what I mean? Like, all eyes have been on the Warriors, like you said, for the last 5 years. So it's one of those things where everybody's paying attention. So even the smallest thing is going to be magnified to, the nth degree. But I don't necessarily think it's a karma thing, because these guys are good guys. Like, you never hear about, them wilding out doing nothing crazy. Like, so I think they'll be back, man. I think it's going to be interesting, because I think one thing that the Warriors have shown, particularly Draymond, Steph, and Clay, is that they don't need much to motivate them.
Right. Yeah, they'll be back. We know, next year. But, man, it's taking me some time to I'm a Michigan guy, a Michigan fan. So, I know who Jordan Poole, Glenn Robinson III are. But I'm not going to lie to you. I went into Charles Barkley, who he played for, more when I saw Kai Bowman. I was like, who? I was like, I had to do some studying. Like, they got some guys who, people that are deep in G League basketball and kind of on the circuit maybe know these names. But the casual fan is having to reacquaint themselves with this team, man. What do you think endears this team to the fans more? The spirit of guys like Eric Pascal and kind of that gutty, just raw dog performance that you're going to get from guys like that, or the fact that you can kind of look at them and be like, listen, we know that they're the underdogs night after night, so we're going to give them a break. Like, is it the spirit that they play with, or is it just the reality of knowing that they can't compete the way they used to?
I think it's a mix of two things. I think it's that, this team has given the fans 3 rings in the last 5 years. So you can't you'll look like a real bandwagon hopper if you jump off right now. And also, like you brought up, like right. Bowman, Pascal, Jordan Poole, Marquise Chris, like these dudes go out there and play hard every night. Like Alec Burke is playing well. D'Angelo, he just got hurt, but before he got hurt again, he was playing extremely well. They don't quit. Like, we've all watched NBA teams, and we're not going to name no names. We've all watched NBA teams where we go out there and we know these guys ain't here to play tonight. They out there collecting a check or waiting until next year. These dudes are going out there like they playing for a job on a championship caliber team because they know come next year when the boys come back, then it's you want to be on that team. Or you auditioning for the team that's going to pick you up next. Like Ty Bowman is on a 2-way contract making $75,000 a year, and he out there checking the best point guard or the best 2 guard on the opposite team every night and putting in work.
Yeah. It's, and it's the one thing about the, if you've been around it, you've been around basketball long enough, we know that it goes in cycles, I remember when I was a kid, if you'd have told me that the Lakers would be down and look the way they were, I would have laughed at you. There are teenagers that this is the first taste of bad Warriors basketball that they'll have experienced in their young little lives, because they just assume, well, man, when I'm 10, 11, 12 years old, the Warriors are rolling. So now they've been rolling all of my basketball existence. Can you think of another time where you were looking at the Warriors and saying to yourself, all right, it's rough right now, but I can see on the horizon what's coming? Like, I didn't see Steph, Clay, and Draymond coming like a lot of people. I didn't know that was around.
Yeah, I mean, I could think of a time I was wrong, but I can think of a time for sure. I mean, you got to think the Warriors have had talent over the years. Like back in the day, the teams with Run TMC, then you had Spree and Chris Webber on the floor. I don't remember what year it was, but I remember reading an article in USA Today. Back in the day, it had to be in the 90s, where there were 5 guys who were the leading scorer on their teams who had all played for the Warriors within a certain amount of months at a time. Because you remember back in those days, the Warriors would trade players in a heartbeat to get, the classic, getting Billy Owens. You know what I mean? Like that whole thing. Like, it's not a surprise at all that, it was a surprise that we got this good that quick with this core. But yeah, I've seen the talent before and thought, oh man, next year is our year, or at least we'll compete. Man, listen.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, I love it too, because I hear people's history of the league. Like, I've been covering the league since this is my 19th, 20th season or whatever. Like, I remember vividly when certain teams were afterthoughts, and now in that span, they've become championship caliber teams, and then going back to the ether. I mean, you don't realize how often this happens, the cyclical nature of it, until you take a broader historical look.
Absolutely not. I mean, you got to think. And I would have never. I mean, anything is possible, but I would have never thought the Toronto Raptors would have won a championship. At least not in my lifetime. And right now, you can say the Clippers have as good of a chance as any team to win the championship this season. So it's like you said, things are cyclical, but I think we're getting to the time now with players taking shorter term deals that the cycle is just, it's a lot more rapid than it was for decades leading up to this point.
Yeah. So what does the rest of the league look like to you? I mean, a lot of people have pegged the Clippers as kind of their favorite. The Lakers are a lot of people's hot pick to be the team that comes out of the West potentially at the end and can win it. I enjoy the fact that there's maybe 7 or 8 teams with legitimate aspirations for winning a championship. Now, I'm not talking about dudes showing up to training camp. Around the league, everybody's saying they want to win a title. We know that's not realistic. That's never realistic. But I can count 4 in the West, maybe 3 teams in the East who all legitimately have a shot to get through and play in the finals. I don't know that I remember a season recently where it was that many teams that I legitimately believed had.
Yeah, I mean, let's keep it real. This is kind of like an asterisk year to an extent thing. Like the team that has been dominating the league for many years has not fallen off because of, you know, some things that happen on their own. They're falling off because of injuries. So it's anybody's game this year.
Yeah.
I feel like every team has holes, but the Clippers have the least amount of holes than anybody. But the fact that we haven't seen Paul George and Kawhi play any number of games together worries me. I think it's more to it than they're putting on. I think Kawhi is not 100% healthy. But everybody wants to see that because they have such a strong bench and a strong core around those guys. And it would be amazing, even if you're not a Clippers fan at all, which is really only 5 Clippers fans for real. You got Penny Marshall, Clipper Darrell, and Billy Crystal, my homeboy Motown, and like 1 or 2 other people. So it's a real Clipper fan. So, it's one of those.
No doubt. Rest her soul, Penny Marshall.
Yeah, for real. Like, so I'm just like, I'm excited to watch them. I want to see them fully healthy. Houston has really surprised me. I'm super surprised because I really did not think that Harden and Westbrook will be able to work that well together. And not to say that they're like, but they're winning, you know, at the end of the day. And that's what really matters. And Boston has really surprised me. I feel like we've already seen a couple teams come back down to earth a little bit, like with Phoenix and to an extent Toronto. But, you know, it's early, man. We are 13, 14 games into the season for most of these teams. Right. We got a lot of basketball left.
Yeah, a ton. And that's why I always have to check myself about making snap judgments a week into the season. I'm like everybody else. This dude is going to be an all-star this year, you know, because he got off to a crazy hot start. It was like, you got to check yourself just a little bit. You have a long history, you know, obviously in journalism and covering the league and really being about the culture, man, understanding that intersection of, you know, where sports and entertainment and the culture itself kind of mix together and collide. What's been the most shocking thing to you about the rise of the basketball culture and how it intertwines with everything else? I remember when I was a kid, and, you know, I'm dating myself. I'm older than you are. It's like I remember being young and really thinking to myself, like, wow, like the basketball player, you know, the NBA players and entertainers coexist in an environment that I'm not privy to as a young person, just watching them. Now with social media and all the different avenues you have to keep up with these guys, it seems like the culture has grown to me. Like it's ballooned, the amount of people who understand and have a touchstone with these current players and where they fit kind of in that bigger landscape. Have you gotten a sense of that as well in your years, paying attention to it?
Absolutely. I mean, I can remember where the only time I saw NBA games on TV was on CBS on Saturday. You know what I mean? Like during the regular season now, almost every night, whether it's locally or even nationally, between, you know, the national telecast, between the 3 different networks or 3 different channels, you almost get an NBA every night. Like being on TV, as much as we cut the cord and social media and stuff, being on TV is the quickest way to get in front of millions of people's faces. And the fact that it's on TV and it's so big and these guys are are stars. Like I remember, you know, it was kind of like you only had one star at a time back in the day. Now you have quite a few guys that are marquee names, and I feel like players are also getting more savvy with how they utilize their stardom. So with whether it be endorsing products or starting their own companies. So I think that has a lot to do with it as well. And I mean, it's just cooler to be a hooper than it is to play football or baseball. You know what I mean? Like it's flashy, you know what I mean? You get to go out and you get to dress how you want to dress coming to the game. They actually show the players coming into the stadium as opposed to other sports. You know, it's actually IG, you know, accounts dedicated to what ballers wear. They have stuff that's dedicated to what shoes. I mean, PJ Tucker is almost as famous for his shoe collection as he is for what he does on the court. So it's just, you know, these guys are really marketing themselves, man. And you got to, man. You might, it's no guarantee everybody's going to have a career as long as a Kobe or even LeBron right now. Like, you might be in and out. So you got to take full advantage of it.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's just strange to me. I remember young Michael Jordan wearing and I remember the backlash he got from the older players. Like, remember when he showed up to his first couple All-Star games, whatever, you know, dressed different and everybody was freaking out. And now I'm like, if you come in looking straight laced, you don't even get on camera. Like, nobody taking a shot at you. You got to come with some heat.
Conservative in this NBA. Imagine that.
Man, I hate to say it. Man, you know. But yeah, listen, I appreciate you taking the time, man. And again, just perspective, man. Sometimes we kind of get caught up in this bubble, you know, and we don't really look at it from a broader perspective, just the game and kind of where it is right now. I was telling somebody the other day, I just feel like the NBA ecosystem is so healthy right now in terms of when you have stars in the mid, you know, guys who are present stars who we know are going to be Hall of Famers when they get done playing. And then the pipeline is ridiculous. Like, the pipeline is loaded. Watching Ja Morant and you know, some of these young boys, and then Luka Doncic and all these young players that we see are going to be next, basically. I cannot remember a time when the next generation, that next wave, was on hand. I remember in the post-Jordan years, we spent like 5 or 6 years haggling over who between Kobe, Tracy McGrady, and Vince Carter was going to be the next, you know, iconic dude in the league. Like, now it's a gamble. You don't know who's going to be.
Absolutely. I mean, these guys are super talented, and don't forget about, you know, Trae Young right here in Atlanta. You know what I mean? Like, Trae is a baller too. They got a nice young core with the Hawks as well. So, you know, it's we got a lot of exciting bats. The league is in a healthy place right now, like a really healthy place, because, and especially people want to get mad about load management and stuff like that. And, you know, I'd be mad too if I paid money to go see a game and the player I want to see wasn't there. But, you know, these guys are taking great care of their bodies because they want to have long careers. So, you know, imagine if we have those matchups that we always want to see. Like, we only got a small glimpse of AI versus Jordan. Imagine, you know, if Jordan had been in phenomenal shape a little bit longer, we would have got 2 or 3 more of those matchups. We're going to see that. We're going to see Westbrook and Trae go at each other for the next 5 years. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to see that. So it's a beautiful place to be, whether your team is doing well or not. It's just great to be able to just about any night turn on your TV and watch really competitive ball. I mean, even the other night, the OKC isn't doing that well right now, but they took the Clippers to the brink, and it was a super exciting finish to the game. So that's what you're liable to see.
Yeah, you're right. We've had some really good early season action, man. I watched the Lakers and Mavericks go at it one Friday night, and I couldn't, I was like, I cannot move until this game is over. LeBron and Doncic going at it. AD and Porzingis matched up. You're right. It's a very good time right now. I agree with you 100% on that, man. Look, like I said, I appreciate it. I know you're busy, so I thank you for taking some time to rock with us.
I appreciate you having me, man.
Peace, Branden. Thanks, brother.
All right, peace.
Want to thank Penny Hardaway, Memphis coach, basketball legend. You remember him from his playing days in the NBA, obviously, and before that, Memphis. Always good to talk to legends of the game and to hear their insights. Also, Branden J. Peters, appreciate him for coming on and joining us, talking about the Warriors and the new reality for everyone that follows and loves and loathes the Golden State Warriors. Much different lifestyle they're living right now with the injuries and all the other drama they have going on. Appreciate those guys taking some time out to join us here this week on the Hang Time Podcast. We'll have plenty more lined up for you in the coming weeks. You know where to find us. Make sure you check it out on Spotify and wherever else you get your podcast. For everybody here at the Hang Time Podcast, I'm Sekou Smith. We'll see you right here next week.
Thanks for listening to Sekou Smith's Hang Time Podcast. Be sure to check out previous episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, NBA.com/hangtime, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Until next time, Hoops fans.